Really? Yes. No, I for 4 years lived across the street from the park. Well, that in this great area. Well, it's a place to live. It was okay. That was that and sort of great was upsites, and the rest of it was up and every state other than during the day. Like sort of, now that it's that downtown shuts down. Fuck. Yes. Well, it's like you can't even get anything to eat after 3 hours. So, everything moves back to the suburbs. Yeah, pretty much. But my wife worked on with them walking, they'll sit there. So, and everyone moved in there. It was not enough here, but I moved that, but based on there. Senior South Korean, something about 20 to 25 this week. And then we also learned about, to reverse all options. Among other things that I do, it was also together. So the idea that think of it as like value produce. That's kind of it's on the value of the class. So I would wait until I get first deadline for the bottom of the first, and then I would go into stuff other than like it and snuggled across the street and very easy. Yeah, and that's pretty convenient way to take this. The people would be where there'll be a lot harder to arrange. I'm sorry. So where I grew up, that would be a lot harder to arrange that direction of probably that 30 miles from Minute Drive. So the way that you do that, and this is also if you're indifferent about where you sit, relatively indifferent, and you just plan to go and say, I'm going to go watch the, I don't know where I'm going to sit, but I'll sit somewhere. And then you do basically the same exercise, but you're sitting at, so I was in the building, it's called 500 Crawford, which is directly across Harvard Street. That's right, yeah. And there were two restaurants there. There were 20 restaurants, get a beer, just sit down at the wall, watch the first inning. Right. And then it was, okay, now I'm going to go to the inning. So they select to be more flexible and but what time do we start? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know it's okay. So let me introduce myself. I think we'll figure this out. We'll give it a couple minutes and then we'll figure out seating. So Anna Olson had actually asked me after I had put together something at the Antarctic conference in the winter around teaching stats to STEM students, and it went over pretty well. And so she and I started having a conversation about possibly putting together what is referred to as community practice, in which faculty across the university, across disciplines, would meet on a regular basis to figure out what kinds of things that they're encountering that does work, that doesn't work, and get suggestions from peers about how to improve things. Create some sort of a place on, let's say, Google Drive in which we share resources, that in which we show things that we have tried and have not tried, assignments that do work, that don't work, so that we can actually work together to make our jobs better so that our students actually learn more. And some of this came as a result of experience that I have. So my name is Brian Bates. I teach in the School of Public Affairs and Department of Justice Law and Criminology. I was largely hired because of my members' skills. I'm not a criminologist, and I'm a political scientist. So as far as the substance of much of what's done in the department, I'm more there for the methods part of it as a social scientist. It is, and I teach all of the master's candidates, they're required STATS class. And it's only a linear model, pretty much everything. It's pretty much an intro to stats through multiple linear regression, and maybe process estimation diagnostics if we have time. And that's sort of, that's a daily yes. And so it's had mixed results, and I've actually worked very hard at trying to figure out what does work and what doesn't work. And so I wanted to both share my experiences and also learn from everybody else. So my function in all this is going to be to coordinate and to try to keep us, organized and moving in a direction which we're all actually learning from each other and providing support to each other. So what I want to do first, I think, is I am now in my third year as a professorial lecturer. I was an adjunct before, and I've taught at a number of different places before coming to AU. So what I thought what we're going to do is basically trying to figure this out, that a community practice brings together us and others, because there are a number of other people from Deep Silo and others that I know that came to the ANPARIC conference who said that they were interested in participating in this, but couldn't make this particular workshop, to try to figure out what it is that we can do to help each other across disciplines and across experiences. Also, whether it's for undergraduate or graduate, whether it's just simple linear models, or whether it's going on to more advanced forms of statistics. And so what it is I want to do today is to first get to know each other. We're going to take a look at some of the priorities that we might have, and then start thinking about, and before we leave, have the beginning of an action plan. And all that the action plan is going to be is, well, what are we going to meet? And after we do some of this exercise, figuring out what things we want to do, and possibly, if not completely in what order, then at least what are we going to start? Okay, so it's going to be structured, but not so structured that we can't, that we don't have any flexibility. Okay, so as an effort, because one of the things that I have found by experience being an academic is that there are meetings that can take place that can just seem to never get past the first point. So this is more of an effort to try to discipline me than it is to discipline anybody else. So I've gotten through a couple of the bits of the first portion of this. And what I'd like to do now is shift to finding out if it's out everybody that's here. And while we're doing that, I'm going to pass out 3 different sets of post-its. The colors are going to indicate, so I had sent that in the email, so I can please indicate, up to 3 things that you might be interested in working on. This will be the first priority. This will be the second priority, and this will be the third. And then what we're eventually going to do is put them into the categories of limbs. They may not work, but they may not fit necessarily as to what it is that you'd like to accomplish, but at least this is a starting point. And it's not exhaustive. There are things that we might want to do that are not necessarily up there, right? So, and I also have some sharp leads that everyone can use to fill in. Wall, this is called so remember, first, second, where it becomes a priority, and I'll so I was call it off, and just take a comment, and take one of each. And the reason for doing this is to sort of get some sort of census, or do we have something that approaches a consensus to what it is that we want to do? Sure. And as people are filling this out, starting introducing ourselves and vinegar. So what I would like for everyone to do is to just tell everybody your name, wherever you're teaching, and one, something about what you want to get out of teaching, figuring out ways which better sets to non-set is. We'd like to start. We don't necessarily have to sit in rooms, but okay.
I'm Molly Sandero. I'm in the sociology department.
Okay.
And I teach our intro to quantitative methods for all of our majors.
Okay.
Who are largely math averse, math anxious. They
maybe student making the limits.
They really only take the class because they have to, or they put it off to their senior year, and then they're panicky about it. I've been teaching it for a couple years now, although I just was on sabbatical last year, so I feel very rusty and a lot has changed with the AI landscape in a year. So that's some reflections that I have. But yeah, I'm really, I just have some things that I think work well and others that I'd like to improve. So I feel really excited to break to others.
Well,
Molly.
okay. Yes. I'm Mike Alonso. I'm environmental science. So I am STEM, I guess. But I guess I was sort of wondering about the framing also of like, does what you did all non-STEM students? Yeah, there's a mix. And is it STEM versus non-STEM that's the issue, or just like, no, let's take it to I have no idea the non-STEM students, they see the map and then they happen. Well, see, that sorts of anxiety, right? So I just incorporate some stats into like my GIS mapping classes and remote sensing, so they just kind of make their way in there. And I think sometimes that is a little bit of the problem. It's like when we focus for like 2 weeks straight on physics problems, everyone's like, okay, this is what we're doing. And they get into it and they like remember that they can do math. But when it's just like a one-off, like calculate the mean of this, everyone's like, what? I don't know. I couldn't possibly do that. So it's something about the framing and repetition that I'd be interested. Okay. So what? Right. Yep. Right, Chloe.
I'm Judy Kim. I just started this month. What was I don't know. I'm in psychology. And unexpectedly things changed. So I'm suddenly teaching the department like upper and level undergrad quantitative methods for second majors, and it's also in the fourth, I think.
So it's a second,
and so they will have
for the quantitative result.
I think so. Yeah. So they will have taken like stats 101 and the general one to make it a little psych specific. I haven't taught the classes where I've like taught mini courses to research assistants, but not a full course. So I've been mostly here to learn as much as possible and hear like what the students are like, what the challenges are.
Well, at least our goal is for us to have a community of people that will provide resources to support this about all in all.
Yeah.
So be something over to you throughout the end of the year. So as things come up, it's like that grows.
Yeah.
That's all we're here.
Yeah, sounds great. I know psych is like technically also outside of here, but says not for the together. That's the same problem.
So up to their computer, right?
Yes, figures.
Probably like to
John, I'm in the math and stat department. I'm an adjunct, and I basically teach the first undergrad or underclassmen stat to the boards students and to business students. Okay, so I teach political science students, business students, some biology students, psychology students. So
how much of you, well, frequently have you taught this course here?
oh wow, since '06.
And I get,
All done. All done. Okay,
so you started slightly,
what is it?
step planning you guys use?
We use stack. Yes, we use stack rates and accept. Oh, good. Okay, for the business. None of it. Okay. So, yeah, that's good.
But I get them in there, what rates is that from? Yeah, it's dedicated to a textbook. You're never going to see it again. And you're like, what?
So, but you would even access stack crunch. So you must stack crunch that and record that.
Yeah, he would be, no, I'm sure they're done.
Yes. Wait,
It's open source.
it's open source.
No, I didn't know that.
It's not. The department pays license.
Oh, no, but that's when they graduate. They don't have access to it. That's also true. But I'm like, that's more than
Oh, okay. I'm good.
Yeah,
So I'm in the master department. Name's Chris. Mostly I teach students like John, but that's then students will appear in courses like step 202, step 160.
slightly, I don't know the numbers.
Basically, step 202 is the one that will feed into second level minutes courses. So students that are taking second Q2 course or like sociology or ecology, but people that take it and mostly So it covers standard. It's a very standard course. It's like every other course. It's like this. It's not a program. Then the semester I'm going to teach 302, which is the mid-level course. Then what it's like, the intermediate so what is that? But I really, yeah, I mean, what that entails is much more empirical look at assumptions. This was testing the assumptions at linear levels. You will wind up doing that, yeah, and all sorts of things to do to make non-linear. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I mean, set things up. So I think in the department, I think the diagnostics and then I need to be like found in 415. But there's specific multiple course that students take, but hey, what kind of, but now are these just for the SAT majors? Now, 202 for a lot of students, 302, most students who are in that course are, I think nowadays, well, I don't know that close to many, or belong to some kind of data science program. So it's required even more of the data science. I think it switches like, yeah, I mean, I think it's required for the 302, I think, for the data science and criminal justice. I think so, yes. But I think we've had maybe one or two students here. That's right. So, yeah, maybe, but not sure about the size. But in the BS and data science, it's required. Folks, that's mostly. Okay. So, did everybody get a chance to, why don't you write down the three things that you were thinking sitting just by way kind of a reminder. And this is just, and the color coding only so we can sort of, before we see what we think, right? What did I say? This was the most important, the second, and then this third. So, orange, blue, green. That's what it is that you would like to get somewhere. Yeah, and then eventually, and then once you've written, put them up on what category you think they belong to. And then what eventually we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, so when we move some of those around, which is the reason we'll post-its, and then let's figure out which ones we want to try to tackle first and kind of group them into something that's coherent, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we then move forward. Okay? Oh, tremendous. And anyone else that you all know is we're going to be sending out emails. They will, daily to set up a faculty excellence as a list of all the faculty who are teaching faculty courses across the university. And we'll send out invites to everybody. But what I welcome you all to do the same and you and colleagues of you that good nothing. But so let me just go through these so that you don't have to write them. What I'm interested in is what you're interested in. These might be arbitrary and these cannot be subjective. So one is, what kind of shared challenges do we have? How do we go about encouraging student engagement, addressing math and stats anxiety, even though stats is not math, regardless of how many times we say it. How do we go about doing assessments and assignments? How do we go about designing our curriculum? Technology. So I teach art, and this can be like big part of my sets of concerns. And I've also heard stories from colleagues who are using the virtual desktop and using Stata or SPSS. And after I heard the stories, I was like, I don't care how much easier it is for me to teach in Stata. I just really don't want to have to deal with the kinds of problems of, I don't know where my work is. I don't know how to use this. I don't realize that I'm actually not on my desktop. It's in the cloud. And apparently it's also buggy. That it tends to not give me. Okay, yeah, I decided I was going to do that. What kind of math competency we have? And a part of that also, I had a conversation yesterday with the chair of my department, as well as the head of one of the programs, because we actually had a PhD candidate from the qualifiers and said, And some of it was because of methods related. I don't teach the PhD students in SDA. All the departments of SDA share, train all of their PhD candidates in methods and rotate the responsibility of presentation work. But apparently this has been a chronic problem. So one of the conversations we had was about whether or not to give diagnostic pretests prior to the start of any sports. And the question I asked was, okay, I'm going to take a glass tonight, 1 quart full. Well, I give them this, and I find it out the notepad, any of the quantitative literacy skills that they need in order to be able to do this. Because the master's students, it's actually a bigger problem than it is for the undergraduates. Luckily, because the undergraduates don't start graduating, they get a math class. I've got students who haven't taken a math class in 10, 15 years, and you walk into this and they're like, what am I supposed to do? So, anyway, so these are not exhaustive. If they, put them where you think that they belong, if they sit, great. If not, and then we'll take it from there and try to figure out how we're going to organize it and that in terms of priorities. But among the things that I would like for all of us to do is sort of share way we're going to lead discussions about things. So I'm just saying to me, and that if we can find resources that are out in the academic world about either articles that have written about pedagogy, what works with lessons, images, videos, and share those things as well. This way, they help all of us try to figure out the best way. And in the most perfect world, this is completely separate from disciplinarity. Biases that lenses, particularly certain things that in what science and society you're going to do that you're not going to, that you are not going to necessarily do, or that you can't do, but you can do in some of the technical sciences because you don't actually have really making solutions. For example, so there's certain things that you just never going to start yourself with. And mental, and some of the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, but you already have to worry about it. In a social sciences, when you're mostly dealing with categories of stuff. I've had any clinical students that look like a research, quantitatively based research paper using a linear model, looking at it's from them, which is always, and without having to explain the math behind it, and also kind of robot presenting some of that stats to people who have never had anything beyond basic, which is voice. Yeah. So anyway, so wherever you think that those things like go, and then we'll come back and we'll figure out, where you want to build stuff and where you want to build that. So, yep. That what else?
Oh, is
For period. Yeah. I've had that experience.
that's okay. It's everyone almost like was each sort of class.
So there's like
The guy walking.
is this the only one you have to teach?
No. Oh, from this semester, yeah.
Okay.
Not terrible. Yes. So what it's some different disciplines there and they course within I would say. So yeah, one photo. I part of the other time, like when taking over from some start for a while, for the multiple somebody, it was a 10-minute pattern. I said, I don't know how much, anyway, I don't know how much of it to use there, like how much to use there versus right now. But
So, I've had exactly the same experience you did. And I was working at Curtis and I know what we didn't come back. And then we get around. It was just, and I was told, well, the person that's teaching this before the final assignment, this is short book that never had any stats whatsoever. Is for them to write a 20 to 25 minute research major that's how it did work things in social sciences. Said, but they're not going to be able to do that. Or like this, what I just said about the Atman's ability about Kim. And then they're going to be asked to do something that they really not going to be able to do much about till like the 15th week of the semester. And they still worried about and said, okay, like I said, this how we replicate something. So it's in those like, it was a trainer. It was an active busting kind of. So it was one of those examples of learning from my mistakes. Okay, so it looks like that curriculum and content design are and suspect to the ones that are the most of the greatest priority. I am the only one that's trying to deal with mountain anxiety or concerned about that anxiety. So when we go through these, and so when we all come over here, so this is actually a good. So, Luke and Smith are killing. So, yeah, what is your experience been? Well, I have students. So I'm sorry. It says research students of bearing back. What I mean by that is that even some of the students have had, they're taking like AP, but okay, they take it. I'm dealing with freshers, but then I have students that they're taking a math course, algebra, but they were some students. Okay, so I'm dealing with those very qualitative backgrounds. So about half of the students have taken a set. Okay, so I'm just concerned with how, and I also know how did that live in how large their Clemson 25 people, which I have those sore experience. But in spring I teach two sections, and I don't know why this keeps happening, but one section is capped. Fully enrolled, but there's a wait list, and then the other one's half full. Can we just try to figure out a way in which we can balance this out, because there's not a seat to be had in one of the classrooms, and the other one, the registrar at various times has shut me into spaces that should never be considered classrooms. So I completely understand. Okay, so for student engagement, who says this? That's fine. Okay, I'm just always looking for ways to increase, participation. So I think that what has happened is putting in politics aside. I think that what has been going on in the last week and a half is actually is a way in which to say, you know what, this actually matters. And the way in which this matters is the dispute that is going on right now with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? And the decision by the administration to fire the person largely because they were giving information that the administration, at least this might be, did not like, and putting someone in place, maybe an economist, but it's not a statistician. And then that creates all sorts of, there's it's not just should they be doing this? The ramifications of this is tremendous. The Federal Reserve Board makes decisions about whether or not to increase or decrease interest rates based on the statistics that are produced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, both in terms of CPI as well as unemployment and also growth. All of these things are going to matter. And if you don't know what the real story is, then what do? from a policy standpoint, since we're at AU, this is a big deal, but also they're in business. How does the business decide whether or not they're going to invest in something? So you make it so, the idea is to try to figure out a way in which to say, okay, let's put it out there that some of you folks don't necessarily see the value in this, but now let's get concrete in the real and see why this could actually matter to your everyday life. And having literacy, not necessarily the ability to be a statistician, but literacy can make a huge difference in your own personal life. But I think it's one thing to get them interested in the idea, statistics, stuff. I mean, what I would read into that question is, how do you get them to ask specific questions about the methods when, in my class, I think it's anxiety. It's like they think they don't even know where to begin. And so they won't ask a question because they might sound dumb doing it. So, for example, one of the things that I do with team tests is I'll say, okay, which of these things do you think actually are these two things most similar to you? We've got two agrees. Then, or if we'd like to do another, this intervention for something, whatever it might be, this is actually better. And so I try to take stuff that's real world as I can, that I can put in, that I can then play with and say, okay, I'm going to show you how this gets calculated. Now I'm going to show you how this exactly matters, not only the real world, but as well as the truth study. It's difficult, but it's something that I try to do.
Thing I studied, right? I knew was the first or second day of spot. I should say my class is pretty applied anyways, or it's studying, which helps with engagement. But, I just showed them an ad, I use a skincare ad. 92% of users report better luminosity, and the point that I start asking them to kind of critique it, and right away they're like, well, 92%. I'm like, okay, that's a sample size of what is luminosity if I'm not seeing that? So if with the point, trying to make the point that some of these is common was critical thinking, right? And then, so they think they don't know some of the statistical concepts, but actually they do this, but granted, data tends to slide as we get to more technical things, but that always is talking, because I think it feels accessible and, not intimidating. So I've been wanting to do more things like that.
No, I think it was a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Okay, for the systems and sites. So, who is this first one? Oh, yeah, this. Okay, that's all right. They have two levels. Okay, yeah. No, I'm just looking for ideas to give us something. Other than the basic homework, where is it saying? Okay, we're doing all of that. But we teach out of there. Let's look after the textbook. And there's most comes out of the textbook, but we try to vary that. It's just like curious. So both of you are in the sets. Yeah. How much do you guys interact with folks like us that are teaching in the departments, especially for undergrads, where probably in this class to whatever on Q2, probably not us. That might be something we might want to say. Yeah, I mean, I think that we can share it's related to what I've done up there. Both will be then and both will be out. The question was thinking about the client, not in terms of, what's where the actual expectations there. And do people expect students to be running P-tests and they fall from what's really given? That's it's a big difference. What do they want? Yeah, and so, was that, yeah, it's wrong. But not in just with side. So I always struggle with the assignments in part because I'm always trying I'm trying to figure out what is actually going to matter to the students, because I have this really serious challenge of trying to convince students at the master's level that they can do this. And I sometimes get pushback in part because, and this is part of the problem, I think with the way in which some of my colleagues are teaching some of their courses, this is the beginning, middle, and end of most of their exposure for the master's students to anything that's quantitative. I'm tired because, say, there are some members of my department that can
that don't want to teach this. And then there are a whole bunch of folks that can't and don't want to teach this. And so even when they're teaching their courses in the policy areas that they're interested in, they don't really integrate it. So it becomes this standalone thing that the department, the school, the university is requiring, and that the students are really very resentful. And so I'm trying to figure out ways in which to build assignments that are going to try and connect the work to words. I've actually used generative AI as a way in which to try to help me, because I kept looking for data sets and just spent hours upon hours, combing it to be able to show different types of whatever the method is that demonstrating. And it was difficult at times. So I created scenarios and gave generative AI those scenarios and said, okay, I want you to generate for me a data set of the following observations, probably number of observations, but following format. And then I would take that data set rather than mine, try to figure out, okay, so when we actually produce something that's going to have a chi-square that's statistically significant or not. I would then take that data set, run it to make sure that it was, give it a scenario, and it's dummy data, it doesn't really amount to anything, but at least it's in the context of the story that connects to what the students are interested in. And I did that for the first time last semester, and that helps, but I'm definitely looking for any and all ideas that people might have. Okay, so I would like to start us off on curriculum and content design. I can get up there. Okay, in front of you. I'm the top blue. This one? Yeah. So I guess I would be the client individual in this case. We could talk more about maybe more back and forth. And so, for example, I teach an urban ecology class where I've doubled down on teaching art also, which big students understand now coming in, but it was a bit jarring. It's like boot camp, and then okay, beyond that, they get good enough at the basic data manipulation packages in R, so they can ingest a spreadsheet, they can clean it up, and they can make a plot. And so my question is visualization as final result versus statistical tests. The end result is usually just here's a plot, a scattered plot of the data. Sometimes you wonder if it makes sense to go further and be well, what's the R squared of that? Or is this result statistically significant? Or in a course like mine, is that just pointless? And that's just something that I'm interested in, and that it's too much cognitive load on students for no real benefit. I think that one thing that I am still working on is figuring out how to take the data visualization and then bringing it together with whatever statistical method or test, and some of them don't lend themselves to visualization. But I looked a lot at Tufte's work as a way in which to try to say, okay, this is a way, and what things do work and what don't. So, but that's something I'm very interested in too.
It's similar. I had a book learning, but in my field, it's called it all off the visualization themselves. A lot of the lots of that. What I'm looking at, or people who are teaching the way in which field, they spend half the class on visualization and just teaching why. This basics, and my friends are showing me it takes they feel like they actually just teach what they think. So it's that, so I don't know. I'm thinking about actually not teaching, not having assignments that are completely are just teaching them both.
So and this I presented the entire conference. There's a series of videos. It's called Intro to Art Programming 101 by someone, he's an epidemiologist and an MD. He breaks down various things that he's demonstrating in small chunks, 15, maybe 20 minutes. They're both animated, includes humor with. And generally what I do is I don't actually spend time in the classroom with showing them R. I might do a very, very quick and dirty version of this is what you're going to see in this video.
and then I have the students replicate the code at both and to write comments about what each bit of code is doing from the video so that they can go back and look at it again and again and again. And I have found amazing, I mean, it's at first it's very Keynesian, but I found amazing things as to what the students are able to do. And he does a lot of stuff with product, and almost exclusively teaches it the tidyverse and G1, so which is like so much easier than but essentially have a data for 12 courses. It's a data meeting books and basic status and prerequisites for it. But I don't know that a lot of people have that particular that. So mostly just tidyverse, G plot, mostly taking data, organically and basically trying to extract information. And usually for a final assignment, we'll give them a scenario with data sets, saying everyone should answer the following questions and one should visualize as well as treat options. And I am amazed at the end of this course as to what they can do with visualization. And then they, I usually tell them, whatever the default and how it is, just use that. You don't have to sit there and figure out, I didn't want to, like they decide, I don't like those colors. And it's like, okay, or they actually discover new things that I didn't even know about and that I simply learn about because of the way in which they're doing it. So,
Love work. So like you're saying, less like you don't put it in class.
I will demonstrate the video that I'm going to have them do. I'll make up a dummy version of it, not exactly what they're doing, but basically the same concept. I'll run through it relatively quickly, and then they have an entire, for me, because I'm doing it on the graduate level, they've got an entire week in which to work on that assignment. Then they submit it via Canvas, and I actually worked with an AI bot and give it instructions as to what it is I'm looking for, so that it can then start generating feedback to that. Because the first time I did this, I had the problems of the week, and I had 45 students. Yeah, and then I made the terrible mistake once after calculating how many bits are graded. I was like, I got my bigger spig out full, and I said, it was like between 5 S's and that. It's like, it's nuts. So who else is up here?
Yeah, it's on found the other sources.
Oh, no.
I don't know. Maybe that's to me because I mean a lot of the real world examples of similar to thing. I think that again helps student engagement. And my thoughts are actually relevant to the discipline. So like, for example, it's happening with the census now as well. Like so I'm, have been wanting to incorporate more real world examples, but also other sources like some very quantitative podcasts, for example, but I just can't get too so much to class already that like the textbook, is really helpful for them and making them do more reading while they're already coding all the stuff that I always have in placeholders, the syllabus need for one has like short ink and then I would do with like so
I'm sorry, what level are you teaching?
I did think in course I want this it's for mostly seniors. So I also teach it to our master's student that only tried once, so also teach them great. But I think if you were saying with undergrads execution better prepared, they'd have more recent math experience. So yeah, that's just something I was interested in.
What's the lead on? What's the lead back at? Okay.
Mine was,
Which one are you? I'm sorry.
how much to update, stuff changes. I mean, it's like a figure I'm already fixing like the previous syllabi or SPSS and like very, very traditional stuff teaching where you have like a list of tests to go through. Their psychology, especially like there's very different philosophies. A lot of people moving away from thought of just days in all of the pressure or yeah. And just starting with the like a model and then teaching them like the lead as a model.
So how about if they do that with folks whose math skills were not graded? How would they explain what prior?
I think actually I'm not the grading on the stuff I'm not. I don't think I'm gonna teach much. If I they just teach things. I don't. It looks hard.
Like to me, it sounds like they read up base there.
Yeah, they go there.
No. But the priors are, there's one that's that serves runner, and the knowledge you're playing as and gets large becomes tremendous. And I think smart has raised my hand for its class to, can you explain to me why we're doing this? Because when that thing gets really big, it goes, it's gone. I mean, its impact is almost zero, which means we're back to the previous world. And the answer is ring of life was at least for being honest and upfront about the submeans. So it's no point. But mathematically, it didn't seem to.
I mean, for now, like I know I have to teach the person to do that. So
But I mean, is that generally what is the psych world mostly frequentist, or
there's like kind of a lot of debate. So that's kind of
what are most of your colleagues doing?
I would say actually on stuff, but it's changing also. So I don't know.
Where do you feel most comfortable?
I mean, I was taught that. So I'll probably,
Since this is the first time through, what's what you guys hope have? Okay. We'll see. If I do how much to push manual calculations of things. Again, that my class is GIS or my class is urban ecology. So I tend to like search for mapping calculations. I like to have to get under the hood and not just keep pushing buttons on the computer. And so I take that philosophy with me towards the statistics also. But I think there's a limit to the utility of that. Like, should they just be pressing the do regression button and then hopefully they critically interpret it and we call it an A, or should they be going deeper into that stuff? Engine with AI, it's probably base. What's the product base? Okay.
I don't know for your experience with that. Just scared cut all the homeworks and that doesn't do that.
So I don't know whether or not this is with whole university. I know that I received an email a week or so ago with language of what your philosophy, and this is not just for once, this is for all concepts, as to what your attitude is on AI and language that you implement yourselves. I personally don't know how to go. Largely because quantum kilo is still on first, and because so, for example, my training an AI bot on how to go about helping with reading R code requires me to know how to use R code in order to be able to tell the bot, okay, whatever that is, that's our or yes, please emphasize this. But if I didn't have the knowledge, I would just be short whenever it is you're setting. So, one thing that I try to do is I scaffold assignments, so what becomes off, both the other is to flip classroom. So they do a bunch more in class, which makes that problem doesn't go away completely, but at least. So, anybody else? Yeah, I think and like my policy was the encourage, open and encourage. I think from that right now, because again, like I'm from GIS, like if you don't know the answer to something, you're supposed to go, to stats or stat exchange, or although if you Google everything, and so AI is the obvious outgrowth of that. But then for certain assignments now, it's like I really need them to know something. Then it's going to be doing bits by hand in class. Like I do a little bit the opposite on the coding. Like I make them come in and do an entire workflow in code by hand, and that made huge difference. And once we got later semester of then students actually they were giving and to do it in class with me standing there rather than wanting to be able to do stuff at home. But who knows how they're figuring out stuff out.
Yeah, I was ending up doing a ton of stuff. But good policy.
Yeah. And like, I was nervous about it. Like, during COVID, it was like no one was doing any kind of tests, and I'd eliminated all tests from my courses. So bringing those little like quizzes back in, make it, that's what they're so used to it. They still do it.
Congratulations and monitoring the foot. But some of them, my class students leave or do a lot of the like teaching and stats and things. Expo on the Tuesday class, and then Friday we basically got like a coding class where we work on assignments. That helps, but yeah, I've never personally put the AI thought and thankful. And one other thing, they spend thoughts with engineers the more on the I can have core theaters or taking a class before. Then this I'd be more relevant once it's availability and sort of that app for students. So then they have like a support person in my class, so I'm here, they can't do grading, but they, usually try to ask students who are particularly good at coding and could help with these things. And I think that it helped to reduce the amount that they use AI or whatever, but I think something else that they could go to and they could, work through those problems with the remodeling one. Yeah.
How well do you that's not department possibly to portable support this amount of students? So the master students, they can only go for software home and what stuff. They're talking about the Vantage Support Lab or about programs like SI. And so, for the first, but it's next. So with courses like in particular, it's not like for courses up to maybe about 200 volts. Anything beyond that tests the people that would work there beyond what we figured that's not another. And that was a great that's a good oh better. They're graduate students in data science, but mostly those are those graduate students are detailed, mostly faculty in the class. So if you're teaching scout wings, so if you're teaching courses like Step 2, we'll often have you will have a data science graduate student that is attached to that. So they can help a lot of do very minimal, not to grade. But they're not in. So we avoid upper division to grade. And so I do have some experience knowing folks who will do 2 or graduate students that only for one of the software electives in they did avoid. It's really makes that 10 different. I've also had experience in doing the whole trade in the statistically or this most recent semester about them coming back and they can come and say, or you're logging our pipelines or what you should and that stuff. This is useful. This is really useful. Yeah, for them. So it would be like I said, I think tutoring up for us sounded really applicable on grad courses. And the graduate software description. No, it's not like for next day we're having a conversation about those things as an import or this such a home. Okay. So for last complex rules here, it's made benefits. What knowledge can be assumed coming into my courses? I think that's just the flip side. Now you're saying, what does the client look like? I'm like, well, what do the stats classes have? And it's pretty easy for me to get a syllabus and actually look at it. So maybe it's parent and bank out because there's not in those classes, there's not a lot of what you were talking about. We don't have people calculate regressive coefficients by hand. That's what's expensive a lot. So all this stuff's outsourced to software, but the book does talk about, or we try to say the interpretation that, but that doesn't necessarily go over that well, because I think at least for the text we use, I don't think students understand what the coefficients actually mean. I think they understand what a linear model is. Like labels aren't supposed to be there now, but the actual content of coefficient itself, like what is the state? How should you write about that? I think that it's often just like magic words, say, and repeats your text in this stuff. Yeah. But I really understand about it a lot. So we talk about that, but this is nobody understand. They have courtesy, right? They don't because anybody understand. They know to repeat those words. We ask them this. But of course they do it and No, I doubt that. I think that they know those words. I think probably a handful of them understanding it.
I think many stuff cost instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one thought is like, it doesn't first.
That's right. I mean, I agree. I don't think they understand it for single quotes. Yeah, we don't have a calculated plan for the most part.
Yeah, I think what I would really like with regression, regarding the coefficients, would be more of the connecting it into a written sentence.
That's right.
With units, so just like a change of this much of success and a change of this much. That's anything in report.
We do that. Yeah. We just part of the homework. We just part of the homework and assign. You know, people write tests. Most tests look like they've been in a problem and they're asked to make action or something like that.
Yeah.
But the interpreting the coefficients that are not statistically missing, and they do it to a 4. But as it's when they talk about to a 4, you do estimates or coefficients in the linear model, right? But a 2 you don't. Yeah, but if you find that there's a coefficient that's not statistically significant, they write in plain English interpretation, which they're including when they actually can't viably saying, well, not seen that for me. So 2 regression is usually introduced as something descriptive. So you're not really talking about inference or coefficients in that class. But in 2 or 4, they do talk about inference and coefficients, and you'll talk about regression. But again, it's done so quickly. I feel like it's just magic words. It's like you hear these things, and you realize you're supposed to say it, or write them down when someone asks you about it, but I don't. Yeah, by the time we talk about it, it's like the last week. It's nearly the 7. Okay, so what do we want about? Why don't we have to figure out whether or not any of these can fit in any of the other categories, and then figure out which one we want to at least start with, and that we can be very flexible as to where we move next. So,
Picture that. That's a sci-fi.
solving some substances, and
I could, probably do it. And
with else. So when people talk about technology and tools, people could not mention software. Oh, that's that would be main. So with basic stack courses, we avoid that. The most involved that's going to get explosives itself is Excel. And we try to run an R-based basic stack course several years ago. It didn't work at all. A couple people tried to do it. It's kind of fiasco. So the reason is that we would have to exclude some things in order to include other things. So if things like software become a learning outcome, that course, so that's be up. So it's fine, but it's now.
One thing I'll share with everybody is it's a series of videos, so you can decide whether or not you're really useful or not. You don't necessarily have to use it the way in which I'm using it, but at least like now it was more interesting for the students than my getting out there and because it is like, okay, where can I watch Wing Drawing or where can I watch Brasco? So thinking more interesting than what this guy's doing for funds. Okay. Anybody else? Not anything else? So my biggest concerns are actually that how couldn't say and was dealing with these happening. So, but I have no real great feelings about what to start. When people talk about math competence in courses, they think student, they can look like 24 by 8. This is an actual experience. What we done? That's the and I was like, I'm sorry, what? So I mean, with math competency, I guess the in basic tech courses doesn't present as an issue. Always, I mean, should actually look it. It has to affect learning parents. And it's serious though. I actually asked, as I was experiencing this with my grad students, I asked a couple of my undergraduates, and they looked at me like, "You think we're stupid?" Yeah. I mean, obviously we know how to do this. And then it became clear to me, oh, they're not necessarily math folks, but they've just been exposed to it and working with it much more recently. So,
yeah, I was also going to say, like, I feel like my course will only need, like, get the knowledge, but are you saying,
no, this wasn't even algebra, this was So it's that homework or is it in class? Both. So what I will do for anything that I'm introducing, I will give them one problem to solve. Whatever it might be. I mean, the final might hit it by hand, just like it, but just one thing with a very, very small set of data set so they can do it by hand. And then I then show them how to go about, eventually showing them how to do this. But I want them to have some ideas of what's going on. So there are times in which they can't figure out how to find from a fraction percentage, or they can't find a decimal about what percentage they don't know how to divide. I mean, it's sort of that basic stuff. Do they remember when you were mine? Sorry, this I think it's 2 years. No, we feel embarrassed. Maybe it's tomorrow. So when I need some help with is trying to figure out how I deal with in a constructive way and not have them shut down. Because I had one student who I was just trying to figure out a very, very basic me. And I had what was like set up names, nice divides, and nice clean number. And she stood at the board, said, "There ain't nothing." Yes, he's just a man. It's just both that he was very. There's no fire. There's no other argument for. And they come from many different universities. They're training in ages, so it's very brilliant. When doing any full pocket and now the calculate, yeah, but you just happen to have been. I just sort of had. I think that the entire data set was 8 numbers. They added to 24 by right. I said, okay, so now it's 10. Let's say number. What? And she came up with the 24, and I said, now count all the observations. I said, okay, now just calculating meaning. You want 24 right? She said, and then I just walked her through and said, so okay, so let's 8 and dad 8. No, let's say the 8 10 had no rate to it. But to be honest with him, she shut that equal out. So it sort of taught me also something about whether or not that students generally what they got. I mean, sort of minimizes. Yeah, what ends up happening, at least one of the experience about this way, there's someone's carrying a wallet. Yeah, and so.
I didn't put happening by your did one of my priority concern, but and also the John about the different background students, but I see them all of them to relate as and they really most of them are actually undergird what how I approach my entire course. I am very interested in.
So can we start the next time with sort of try to figure out a name for math anxiety, competency, both of them.
Well, I kind of see the diverse background.
Oh, okay.
And like, so often we can that, it's a different level to the
company. So that, again, the shared challenges, the math anxiety and the math competency, bringing them all together into one category and starting something like that. Right? That sounds good. And then what we would like to do, maybe, what we would like to do next, let's just choose like 3 things of all. One of the things we need to talk about is how frequently we want to meet. And I refer to just one's commitment. So that's what I feel. Sorry, that's not that. So maybe twice a month. If once every 2 weeks, something like that. And we'll play it by ear. I mean, if it looks like it's too much, then we'll spread it out more. The point of this is not to be rigid, but it's to service all the people who are participating. So, so what would we want to do? So what would we take? First, well, just quick instance care challenge. Looking for all those all. But then we'll be later. So there's something else. Like the rule that was at that. Okay. The Google Drive, and like, yeah, okay, almost like that. Online, so it's like, sure, sure. So I just thought that there was some kind of service reserved at the university. You could both find that kind of yeah. But I don't know, there's something like for us in a study, there's something called the cave on it, and no one knows how to get it. But I thought that was fast, so for some reason I found it real quick.
that you're supposed to give. So with maybe sure in general, but for whole course,
Yeah.
like I think you're supposed to give these to something.
I don't know.
No,
Like,
but I don't worry.
students or whatever, but it's relatively recent in the last couple of years, I would think. But yeah,
You've already got the first part. It's the second part that no one seems to know how to play. Yeah, I turn them over to somebody, and then nobody seems to know how to play. So, all right. So, why don't we, for the next time we get together, deal with the various issues that are there? Is there anything else that anyone would like to add to this, or something that we haven't dealt with yet? Does anyone like to lead or co-lead? And this is just for the purposes of structuring conversations, not for making a presentation. Anybody like to take a shot on it for the first time? No one would like to holding it once. Good job. We should do it. Okay, so what am I? Trying to identify some of the challenges, some of the things that you've done. Also, I think that what I'll do is I'll take pictures of each of these things and then we'll post it on a Google Drive. And then what would be helpful probably for whoever's leading that particular set, and we're going to revisit this as we do this, we'll submit problems and ideas to whoever is going to be leading to then incorporate into some sort of, not strict agenda, but, a list of things that we're going to try to address. And so you're not going to be on your own. There are going to be supplies and stuff. Something like you could, whoever's doing it, great. We get access to some stuff and we stop your call. Yeah, but if we would have to submit stuff like a week before, that would probably make some then it could be put in stuff and thing. Well, we'll set up the Google Drive and we'll set up folders for each of the sessions that we're leaving it, and then people will submit what they can. Both questions, problems, and answers, and any resources if they might be interested. For example, I read a couple of academic pieces that dealt with the problems of anxiety, and was dealt. Unfortunately, the first paragraph of it was what we have to do in session of those problems. But different things that were I don't think that either things that have been written or experiences, anything that's going to be helpful to us in doing this. The idea behind this is for us to both to provide support to each other, brainstorm, try to figure out things together, learn from each other's successes and mistakes. And so we don't all feel like we're just thrown into the deep end of the pool and we haven't even taught them to swim empty. And said, okay, here, because I think that'll help all of us and this September's Michael. Okay? And this is it. So why don't I take pictures of it? So, you know what? Let me just give you my email address so everybody can send me an email, because I know I have a list, but I don't know. You got email anyone? Okay. Okay. So my email address is